Welcome to the 2026 annual storytelling concert from the Australian Fairytale Society. And our theme this year is faith and fantasy. My name is Alyssa Curtain, and I'm currently coming to you from, I've got to look it up, Wongathara country in the Western Australia. So I'm about an hour and a half north of Kalgoorlie. My nearest supermarket is about an hour and a half away in Kalgoorlie. So it's been quite an interesting experience. I'm working with some First Nations students at school, and so I really liked, and I went out on country yesterday with students and some elders during school time, and it was a very, very rewarding experience to be on country with people from this area, showing how they care for the land, how they nurture the land. And so I'd like to acknowledge all of the different people from where they're from and what they do, and acknowledge the traditional owners who have cared for, can continue to care for the country that we all call home now. So our concert this evening brings together five storytellers, and our very first storyteller is going to be Jill. And Jill, you're going to have to correct me, Jill, if I get it wrong. Pan Twardowski? Did I get that right?
Very close, very, very close. Pretty good.
Yeah, thanks. And so I'll let you introduce yourself and your story, and we'd love to hear it. So if everyone wants to turn their mic off if they haven't already, just so Jill can have the floor. Thanks, Jill.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And it's lovely to be here. I'm Jill Webster. I'm up here in Darug country in the lower Blue Mountains of New South Wales. And I first heard this story from some Polish friends that I had nearly 30 years ago. And there are many, many variants on this tale. So this is going to be another one. The story of Pan Twardowski. See, you were close, Alyssa. There was once a nobleman called Pan Twardowski. Now, if you spoke Polish, you would know that Pan is an honorific. It denotes a status above the regular person. It's not so much Mr. and more Sir. This nobleman, however, he was not the wealthy kind. He was more like the third son's second cousin, and his nobility did him no good at all. He lived in small and humble rooms in that great learning centre, Krakow. And he studied and he studied late into the night. He yearned to know more. He yearned and yearned to grow more knowledgeable, wise, and powerful. And as he looked out the little window and saw the young woman who lived in the house over the laneway, he yearned for other things too. But her parents would not deign to introduce their daughter to a man in such a shabby coat. He just wanted more. And one night, poring over his books, he thought, I want more wine, I want more food, I want more money, I want more knowledge, I want more power. I would give anything for more. Now there was a fly that he hadn't even noticed buzzing around. But soon that fly transformed, whoosh, into Mephistopheles. The devil himself was in the room. Oh, don't be so surprised, Pan Twardowski. A learned man such as yourself should know that if you say things like, I would give anything for more, a certain person just like myself is bound to arrive. And I wonder, Pan Twardowski, do you mean it? Do you mean it? Would you give your soul for more knowledge? Would you give your soul for more power? And that will get you more money and an introduction, I'm sure, to the young lady over the road. Would you? Uh, well, said Pan Twardowski, well, I would, but you should not be surprised that, as a learned young man, I have some conditions. I do know about these things, these contracts You see, I've been studying contractual law amongst the medicine and the alchemy, and the negotiation began until finally a contract was signed in Pan Twardowski's blood that he would have great knowledge and power, a couple of little imps to help him and serve him in his studies and his work, and the devil could only take his soul in Rome. Now, Pan Twardowski had no plans at all to ever go to Rome. He thought that was a pretty easy thing to avoid. And so Mephistopheles disappeared, and his little servants simply scurried around saying, "As the Lord commands, so must we do." And he fetched amazing books from all over the world, and he found out secrets of how the world works. And soon his reputation grew as a healer of maladies and a solver of sticky problems. And as his reputation grew, so too did his wealth, until the parents of the girl who lived over the laneway, well, they insisted, in fact, nearly begged for him to marry their daughter as quickly as possible, and quickly it was done. So quickly that he didn't have time so much as to exchange a single word with her until they were married, which is a little unfortunate, because when the now Pani Twardowska spoke, the sound of her voice was to Pan Twardowski's ears like the sensation of chewing shattered glass would be to his mouth. It seemed to enter in and injure the most delicate parts of his inner ear and pierce his brain, such that the very next day after their wedding he said to her, "I'm sorry, my beloved, but I'm afraid I must go now. I will leave you well provisioned, of course, but Poland needs me. Poland needs my knowledge and my skills, and I must depart. Farewell." And to his little imp servants he said, "Quick, quick, I need a fine beast, a noble beast to ride around Poland on, as quick as you can, please. A proud animal. I can't go on foot." And so Pan Twardowski left Krakow. He left it riding a saddled rooster. And if you go across Poland, you will still see the marks of his journey. Over there, the locals might say, those cliffs are from the mountain that Pan Twardowski turned upside down. It was amazing. And stories you'll hear about the old man with the young wife who asked to be made youthful and full of vigour. Now, it was unfortunate that when he arrived home, neither the servants nor his wife recognised him, but that's not the point. Pan Twardowski did as he was bid. Months he went, avoiding Krakow, avoiding Pani Twardowska, avoiding and serving the people of Poland. And as his reputation grew, the King of Poland summoned him back to Krakow. You see, the king's wife had died. He had been absolutely besotted with her. He had married her despite the advice of his courtiers. Even the Queen Mother had objected, but he fought. There was political intrigue galore. But only after a few months of being wed and her being crowned queen, she died. He wanted to speak with her again. He wanted it with everything in him. Pan Twardowski lost no time and trotted back to Krakow, up the hill to the palace, and he was ushered in to the darkened chambers where the king and a handful of courtiers and servants waited. Now his imps had fetched for him a large silver mirror, which was brought before them, and there in the darkened room Pan Twardowski spoke words of great, deep power. And through that silver mirror he summoned the spirit of the dead queen. The king was overjoyed to see his beautiful, beloved wife once more. He reached out his hand as if to touch hers. But then everybody got a closer look at this white, floating, spectral apparition. Everybody took a closer look and realized that the queen had been dead for months now. And when she reached out her skinny hand to touch the king's, flakes started to drop from her, leaving only white bone. And as they gazed upon her beautiful face, they saw that the flesh was starting to melt away and her eyes were dropping back into the sockets. And the king's feelings turned from delight and joy to horror and disgust and despair. And the voices of the servants and the courtiers started to whisper things like devil, devil, witch, wizard, devil. And Pan Twardowski knew that it was time to get out of there quickly, and he raced away, running, trotting down the streets of Poland all day. He raced away from that palace, trotted and trotted on the dusty, dry road. He trotted on his rooster, far and fast as he could. And the day wore on. The day started to grow dark and cold, and he was frightened and hungry and thirsty. When up ahead, he saw a little tavern at the side of the road, and he thought to himself, surely I have gone far enough in one day to rest here. And he walked in to the tavern. The contrast was remarkable. Where outside was dark and cold and dry, inside was warm and glowing. Glasses clinking, people winking, chatting, flirting. Ha ha! Hi hi! Hadde hola! There was merriment and the smell of food. Well, Pan Twardowski ordered himself a meal, and as he waited for it to be delivered to his table, he took a glass of wine. He was so thirsty. He drank, and he drank, and he drank. And then he looked, because there was something in the bottom of his wine glass. Was that a bug or a fly? In the blink of an eye, Mephistopheles was there beside him at the table once more. What are you doing here? What are you doing here? I'm not in Rome. Oh, I think it is time for you and I to have a little chat, Pan Twardowski. Did you not pay any attention to the sign outside? Did you not see the name of this tavern? This is the Tavern Rome, and you, Pan Twardowski, are in Rome, which means our deal is done. Your soul is mine. Now, those of a faithful disposition can know that when Mephistopheles grabbed Pan Twardowski and flew to take him straight to hell, Pan Twardowski suddenly remembered a song his mother had sung to him in praise of the Virgin Mary, and he sung that song with the innocence of the boy he once was. And when he did so, the devil's fingers started to burn, and he could not hold on to him, and he fell, landing on the moon. Now, those of a more fantastical disposition might think, well, Pan Twardowski was a studied Polish man, and he was going to start quibbling about the contractual meanings. Don't you think that Rome was implied in the former contract to be the city of Rome, and as such, and foremost, and further, he managed to get some conditions, more conditions. He said, if you do these tasks, then I will give you my soul willingly. All right, I can do tasks. Come on, hurry up, hurry up. And so Pan Twardowski made the devil do things like bring the picture of the horse on the wall in the pub to life. And he made him do things like have a bath in holy water. Right, that's it. One more and you've got it. One more and you're mine. And for the final task, Pan Twardowski set the challenge of living married with his wife for 1 year. But and as the devil was shaken, quivering in his German-style boots, well, Pan Twardowski raced out the window, mounted his rooster, and flew up, up, up to the moon. And there on the moon he is to this very day, out of the clutches of the devil, he and his faithful rooster. But he misses Poland, and he misses Krakow. And every now and then he will transform his rooster with a little of the devil's magic that's still in him into a silvery spider. And the spider on a single silver tendril goes all the way down to listen. Listen to the people of Krakow. Listen to their stories. Listen to their news. To bring that back to the moon. And so, to Pan Twardowski and his rooster, and to you and I say, na zdrowie, good health to us all.
Thank you so
That
much,
is the story.
Jill. Thank
Thank
you so
you.
much. That's really awesome. I'm really taken by the thread. The silver thread was just beautiful. And there was a moment in there where I was just like falling into the computer almost. It was wonderful. Yeah, really wonderful. Really wonderful skill on the device as well. So, and I know you
Thank you
have to
very
turn
much.
your camera off now, don't you? So, but you'll
I
still be
do.
with us.
Sorry about that.
That's right, you'll
Thanks
still be
very
with
much.
us. Thank you
I will.
very
I'll be
much.
listening.
Um, Next up, we have Susan Hobson. And if we like to welcome Susan on, and lovely to have you here. And thank you for signing up to tell a story. We would love to hear it. And yours is a traditional tale, I believe, called The Man Who Had No Luck.
That is right. Excuse me. Um, yes, I'm coming from Brisbane where it is very hot and sticky. I first heard this story in England where I used to live, being told by the Company of Storytellers. I don't know if anybody over here has ever heard of them, but they're great storytellers. And I was so impressed by it that it stuck in my head. So I've probably made lots of mistakes with it because I've never actually seen it written down. It's just from that one oral storytelling. And this is the story of the man who had no luck. There was once a man who had no luck. Other men had luck. Other men had fine houses and servants to scurry around at their bidding on the slightest whim. Other men had adoring wives and beautiful children. But our man had no luck. So one morning he decided he would set out and travel and find God and ask God where his luck was. So that's what he did. And he walked and he walked and he walked and he walked. And the further you go, the further you get, or so they say. Well, he came to a forest, and in that forest there was a clearing, and in the clearing was a wolf. Oh, but what a wolf! You could count every single one of his ribs through his dry, matted fur. His eyes were glazed, his tongue lolling. Hello, said the moon. Hello, said the wolf. We don't have many strangers passing this way, he said. Oh, well, I'm just passing through, said the man. I'm on my way to find God and ask him where my luck is. Oh, that's a good idea, said the wolf. I'd love to go with you, but I can barely move. I can barely stand. I I don't suppose you would ask God a question for me, would you? You see, my brethren are full of vigor. They run, they dance, they leap around, and I can barely move. What's wrong with me? Okay, said the man. I can do that. And he carried on his way. And he walked, and he walked, and he walked, and he walked. And the further you go, the further you get. Or so they say. Well, he came to another forest, not the first one, different one. And in that forest was another clearing. And in that clearing was a small tree. It was a funny little tree, all kind of twisted and gnarled, as though it had been trying to reach up into the sky, but couldn't quite make it. Hello, said the man. Hello, said the tree. Are these strangers round here? Oh, I'm just passing through, said the man. I'm on my way to find God and ask him where my luck is. Ooh, said the tree. That's a good idea. I wish I could go with you, but I can't because I'm a tree. But I wonder if you would ask God a question for me. Would you do that? You see, the thing is, my brethren are all scattered around the forest, and they're tall, and they reach up into the sky and touch the clouds, and they scatter their seed upon the wind. And me, I've been here forever, and I never seem to grow a single inch. Please could you ask him why that is? What's wrong with me? All right, said the man. No problem. And he carried on his way. And he walked, and he walked, and he walked, and he walked. And the further you go, the further you get. Or so they say. And he came, not another forest, he came to a valley. And through the valley ran a sparkling river. And on the banks of the valley was pasture with a cow grazing, and grain growing in a field, and a vegetable patch, and an orchard, and a lovely old farmhouse hunkering down in the sun, just like the cat that was on the windowsill and the dog in the yard. And in the doorway of the farmhouse stood a young woman. Hello, said the man. Hello, said the young woman. Don't see many strangers moving this way. Oh, I'm just passing through, said the man. I'm on my way to God to ask him where my luck is. Oh, said the woman, that's such a good idea. I'm impressed. I'd go with you, but I'm the only one here and I can't leave the farm. I wonder, would you ask God a question on my behalf? You see, I've got everything I could possibly want here. The farm gives me everything. I should be the happiest person on the planet, but I'm not. I'm restless. I'm discontented. I don't understand. Could you ask God what's wrong with me? Absolutely, said the man. Consider it done. And he carried on his way. And he came to a mountain, and he climbed to the top of the mountain, and there at the top sat God, twiddling his thumbs. Um, excuse me, said the man. Yes, yes, said God. I do know what you're here for. I just want to ask you a question, said the man. Yes, yes, said God. I know you do, and I know what your question is. I am God, after all. The answer is your luck is waiting for you just round the corner. Well, you can imagine how delighted the man was. He hurried back down the mountain and retraced his steps, and soon he came to the valley, and there was the young woman waiting anxiously to see if he would come back. Hello, said the man. Hello, said the young woman. Did you find God? I did, said the man, and he told me my luck is waiting for me just round the corner. Oh, I'm so pleased for you, said the young woman. I'm absolutely delighted. I, I don't suppose you asked my question, did you? Oh, yes, said the man. I did. And God said, you have everything you need except for human companionship. You need to find yourself a friend, maybe even a husband, raise a family, and then you'll be happy. Oh, said the young woman, but where will I find anybody to make a friend out of? I never see anybody. You're the first man that's come this way for rather a long time. I don't suppose, she said, you might be interested in staying with me. The farm comes plenty here. Easily look after two people, even more if we decided to take it further. What do you say? Dad, said the man, I can't hang around here helping you. My luck's waiting for me just around the corner. And he carried on his way. Well, he came to the second clearing, and there was the tree. Hello, said the man. Hello, said the tree. Did you find God? Did you ask your question? I did, said the man, and my luck is waiting for me just around the corner. Oh, that's really good news, said the tree. I'm so happy for you. I don't suppose you remember to ask about me? Oh, yes, said the man. God said that a long time ago, when you were little more than a sapling, a group of robbers came to the clearing. They had an argument over who was going to look after a box, and they decided in the end to bury it under your roots because then they'd be able to find it again. But after they'd gone, they never came back, so the box is still there. And that's why you can't grow. You need to get rid of the box. Get rid of the box, said the tree. How am I supposed to do that? I can't kick it with my roots. I can't scrabble away from the top with my branches. I need what about you? What do you think? Why don't you come back with a shovel and dig the box up? Are you mad? Said the man. You've got to be joking. My luck's waiting for me just round the corner. I can't waste my time helping you. And he carried on his way. And he came back to the first clearing, and there was the wolf. Hello, said the wolf. Did you find God? Oh, yes, I did, said the man, and it's fantastic. My luck is waiting for me just around the corner. That's good news, said the wolf. What about me? Did you remember to ask about me? I certainly did, said the man. And God said, the reason why you're so thin, the reason why you're so weak and so feeble and you can't run and you can't leap and you can't leave this clearing is because you're starving. You need to eat something. Oh, said the wolf. So he did. And that is the end of the man who had no luck.
Thank you, Susan. I love that this is a story that you said you heard a long time ago and it just sort of stuck. And we have such an amazing power, don't we, as storytellers, to be able to leave a lasting little bit of magic with people. So thank you so much for sharing that.
Thank you.
All right, coming up next, hopefully we have no technical issues, but Joe Henwood, our wonderful treasure that is Joe Henwood, is going to tell us the tale of the pumpkin girl, I believe. And let's just go with the tech and hopefully it works. We'll just persist through it if it doesn't, and yeah, we'll get what we get from it. Thanks, Joe.
Exactly. Thank you. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes?
Okay.
Perfectly.
Long ago, in the great and ancient land of China, there lived two neighbors side by side. Each one was small and humble, and they each lived in a little house. And the houses, too, were small and humble. And each one had a garden, but the gardens were neither small nor humble. They were magnificent, filled with all manner of plants that would grow and give beauty and food and nourishment. There were red tomatoes and green beans and golden corn and pumpkins, orange and golden as the sun. And these plants grew and flourished. And the pumpkins, too, grew more magnificent than any plant before or since. Large they grew, with their big green vines stretching out like arms on either side, so that the vines grew up and over the wall that divided the two gardens, reaching up until they entwined and gathered together, forming a green linking hand just there. And there, where the vines of the pumpkin mingled, where one could neither tell where one pumpkin vine began and another ended, a pumpkin began to grow. The most glorious one that the world has ever seen. Huge it was, as if the sun itself had fallen and landed on the wall between the two palmers. And the pumpkin grew bigger and bigger until it was ripe. But to whom did this magnificent pumpkin belong? Now, I could leave it to you to decide, but I will tell you that these two neighbours, these friends, decided that the only just thing was to divide the pumpkin in two. And so they took a sword, a long knife, and hand in hand on the edge of it, they raised that knife down and split the pumpkin asunder. And there it rested. And inside that golden shelter was a little girl. Inside her own pumpkin cradle. And as we could say that the pumpkin belonged to both, so too did the pumpkin girl. And she grew up with two fathers, each one nurturing and loving her, each one glowing in delight as she grew up so wondrous, filled with beauty and sweetness and kindness and knowledge, and best of all with a voice, a singing voice that could linger so that the birds would stop in the air just to hear the notes that she sang. And the birds would stop and then fly on, carried by the sound of her voice. And so, with all these gifts, you may not be surprised to know that word of her beauty and all else she brought spread out throughout all of China, and suitors came one after another, coming to lay their hands before her, to offer her a life with them, marriage. But time after time, the pumpkin girl was not interested. What need did she have of them? And so time after time, her father sent the young men off on their way. Until one day, a young man came, no richer or really more better looking than any who had gone before, and yet there was something that made the pumpkin girl look at him. And the young men looked back at her, and the fathers, they saw her looking at him and him looking at her, and they looked at this young man with pleasure. Tell us, you who would be our son, what is your name? And the young man answered them truly, my name is One. And One is a name that means 10,000. And so, with a heart full of 10,000 blessings, the two fathers united the pumpkin girl and One, and they were joined together in marriage and lived in much happiness. Now, all of this was coming to pass at a time when China was building a great wall. The Great Wall of China that people say is the only built structure that can be seen from the moon. But at that time, that seemed an impossible dream. For every time a length of the wall was built, it would collapse, and the wall would be lost once more. Ah, and the people of China longed for some answer of what could it be that was pulling their wall down. Well, the word spread out and the rumors grew and the concern happened until at last the emperor of all China, was forced to act. And so he traveled throughout the great land of China, not alone. Oh no, the emperor never travels alone. He had his courtiers wise and foolish. He had servants and soldiers and guards and lords and ladies and priests, all of them coming along in their fine clothes. And ahead of them all, the musicians played with cymbal and with drum, and the pennants unfurled, flapping in the wind like the wings of some red bird. And the music and the pageantry went on throughout all of China, until they came to the place where the pumpkin girl and her family lived. It was a glorious sight. And the leader, the prime minister, stepped forward. Good people of China, we come with a great thing. We will build the greatest wall the world has ever seen. But alas, the gods do not favor us, for every time we build a length of the wall, it falls again. 10,000 lengths we try to build, and again the gods drag our wall down. The gods are not pleased with the people of China, and this is how they punish us. A sacrifice is needed. A sacrifice for every one of the 10,000 lengths of this wall. We will take 10,000 people and they will be sacrificed to the gods, and the gods will smile upon our wall. And the people of China looked at each other. 10,000? 10,000 deaths? Oh, 10,000 times. No, not my death, not for a wall, nor the death of my son or my daughter, of my father or my wife. No, 10,000 times no. And the people gathered up and they moved closer and closer to the emperor and all those surrounded him, and they drew closer and closer, all the time shouting, threatening, demanding, until the prime minister oh, good people of China, you misunderstood. No, not 10,000 deaths. No. Merely the death of one who is 10,000. All we need is the death of someone named one. For with the death of one, there is the death of 10,000, and our wall will triumph. And with this, all the cries of despair and anger faded away until there was left only one, the pumpkin girl, weeping for her one. And she wrapped her arms tightly around him to hold him on as the guards pulled him away, her arms tight as pumpkin vines. But no, he was plucked from her grasp like a pumpkin from the soil and carried away to be buried inside the wall. But the pumpkin girl did not give up. Oh no, she followed. She followed along all those lengths of the Great Wall of China, calling after him, one. And a voice grew high in the sky, calling out until the sound seemed to echo, carrying on and on across the air, across the land, until the sound seemed to be the sound of her own name echoing against the wall. And she fell to her knees and wept, and her voice raised up in grief, one. And the voice, the sound of suffering, of despair, was enough to crack that wall wide open. And still the sound of her name went on echoing through the insides of the wall. And she stretched out her arms, and her hair blowing in the wind so that she was joined to the wall, joining it up with her own life. And the sound of her name went on until she could see him, her own one, just a pale mark inside the wall, until she could lean closer in there, part of the wall, part of him, as her name whispered on, the same sound echoing, reverberating against his bones.
Wow, Joe. It's nothing quite like a Chinese or Vietnamese story to end with a bit of an unhappy or an ambiguous ending, is there? That was wonderful. Thank you for
All
sharing it.
continues, and the pumpkin girl and her true lover are united for all times. And it's because of their love and their life that the wall endures.
Yeah, fantastic. That's a really great story. Thank you for sharing. We've had so many good stories. I'm just so excited by all the stories we've had. They've been great. Next up, we have Louise Phillips, who's in Queensland. And Louise is going to tell us a Scottish tale, I believe. Left my notes over there because I had my phone on charge. Okay, so take it away, Louise.
Thank you. So, yeah, Jingery, as I meet with you on Wanjarabara country, and I'm going to tap into the Gaelic roots in my ancestry. And I've come to know this story in the collection Thistle and Thyme, not TikTok Time, but Thyme the Herb, Tales and Legends from Scotland by Leodas. Now, there is a path that runs along the top of a cliff. And along that path, one misty morning, two fairy women, the Gaelic kind, were walking along, and they saw a wee bundle, and the bundle moved and whimpered, and they moved towards it and looked over it and saw that it was a wee bun. "It's a mortal bun," one exclaimed. And then they looked around to see if anyone was around. But it was just the empty moor and the cliff above the sea. "What no one comes to be claiming as their own, I will take." And one scooped the wee bun up under her shawl, and they walked off. Now, at the same time, at the bottom of the cliff in the sea, there were two fishermen out at sea, and they saw a figure on a rock. And they thought at first it was a bird, but when they got closer, they saw that it was human. "Oh, we can't be going there. We'll break up on the rocks," said one of them. Whereas the other, a bit more kind-hearted, "Oh, I won't have a peaceful dinner if I thinking about some poor thing dying on the rocks." So we steered in closer, and there they found a young lass who was quite dazed but not injured. So they took her in, and they took her home to their village. And the women of the village looked after the young lass. And when she stirred, she said, where's my bun?" The men hadn't seen a wee barn. The women hadn't seen one. So the women asked the men to go up to the path to look, because the young lass, she shared that she'd left her wee barn on the cliff while she went to get some water. So the men looked up and down the path, but no wee barn did they find. And they looked all day and night until they had to come back with the grave news that they did not find any babe in a bundle. The wee lass was distraught. I must go and find my wee barn. But she was still quite weak, so they encouraged her to rest. And she rested until she had strength, and then she went to look for her wee barn. And she walked from croft to croft, village to village, asking everyone, had they seen her babe? But alas, no one had seen. But then some of the gypsies said, why don't you go and see the ancient grandmother? And then the young lass wanted to do anything she could to find her wee bun. And so they took her to the ancient grandmother. And the ancient grandmother took her hand and held it, and then got some herbs from a basket and threw them in the fire. And they sizzled, and the smoke swirled around the old crone's face, and she stared into the flames whilst holding the young lass's hand, and they wept sorrowfully for the missing bun. And then the ancient grandmother saw, oh, your wee barn's gone. It's been taken by the she into the sheehan, and what goes into the sheehan never comes back. Oh, I must get my wee barn. Is there a spell or something that you can do? And the old grandmother said that she knew the wisdom of humans, but she did not know the wisdom of the she, for they were as old as the world. Can you not give me a spell or something? Said the young lass. Oh, let me think about it, said the ancient grandmother. And she knew she could not give a spell, but by the next day, she realized that this was the time for all of the she-folk to gather, because it was time for them to choose their next leader for the next 100 years. And she thought that this would be a good time for the young lass to kind of slither in because there was so much activity. The young lass thought this was a great idea. But then she said, but how do I win my wee barn back? What can I do? The ancient grandmother shared. She make nothing. Everything that they have stolen or begged for. They have a great desire and vanity for things that there's no equal. Perhaps you can give them something like that. Where do I get something like that? Asked the young lass. And the ancient grandmother said, That I cannot tell you. Well, the young lass, she thought about everything she knew about the she and the fairy folk, and about things for which there's no equal, and about the rarest things. And she thought, until the white cloak of nectar came to mind, and the golden stringed harp of Rad. Then she knew exactly what to do. So she set off down to the beach, and she collected feathers from the eider ducks, and she wove them into a cloak. And the cloak was so soft it felt like a cloud had landed in her lap. Then she took some strands from her golden hair, and she embroidered delicate flowers and leaves on the border of the cloak. Then she laid the cloak under some gorse. Then she had to make the golden string harp. So she looked along the beach for something to use, and she spotted a whale's rib bone that had been bleached by the sun and smoothed by the tide. Then she took some strands of her golden hair and tied them to make the strings. And then she struck the strings and made the sweetest sound that the birds above lay motionless, listening. Now she was ready to go into the Xi'an. And she set off to the foothills of the Xi'an. And there were Shi coming from all directions. Now the Shi, if you don't know, are very long, thin folk. And they have long, narrow ears that are pointed at the top. The young lass spotted a Shi and suddenly stood out in front of the Shi. The Shi exclaimed, "What's a mortal doing here in a Xi'an gathering?" And then the Shi spotted the cloak. "How much for the cloak?" The young lass said, "The cloak is not for sale, but it has its price." "Name it then." "Take me into the Xi'an, and then I'll give you the cloak." The Shi was not keen on this and said, "I will give you all the gold, and then you give me the cloak." "Not all of the gold in the Xi'an is worth the cloak. My price is, take me into the Xi'an, then you can have the cloak." And so they squabbled for some time until the Shi eventually gave in and took the young lass into the Xi'an. Of course, all the other Shi were aghast to see a mortal in the Xi'an, but the young lass walked stridently straight up to the king with her golden harp. The king was startled. "What's that you have there?" "It is a harp." "I already have a harp. What makes this one so special?" And then she played it. and it made the sweetest sound that all the she folk went wild with love and longing. Now the king had taken a liking to it. But first, he asked,
Let me check the tuning.
"Oh, I have tuned it myself with my own hands," said the young lass. And she played some more. And he too was becoming spellbound.
I've taken a liking to it. Name your price.
Now she had him. "I want my wee barn back that the two sheep who walked along the path above the black cliffs over the sea took." This was the price he did not want to pay.
There, take all of that gold. Even your king would be envious of it.
"I want my wee barn back."
There, take all of those jewels. A royal price for the harp.
And so they kept squabbling, and she kept insisting that she wanted her wee barn back. Eventually he relented, and he had the wee babe brought out. And as soon as the wee babe saw their mother, they recognized her and put out their hands. But the king said,
The harp first.
"My wee barn first.
The harp first.
My wee barn first." And so they squabbled until the king gave in, and she held her wee barn, and the king struck the strings of the harp, spellbinding all of the she-folk, that they did not notice her walk out of the sheehan. And she walked and walked back to the village where the fisher folk lived, who loved her so. And there they all lived happily for the rest of their days.
Beautiful, Louise. Never ceases to amaze me how different people take the same story and weave it into something magical. It's just beautiful. Thank you for sharing.
Yes. Thank you.
Our last teller for today is the wonderful co-host Pretty, and Pretty will be telling a tale called The Enchanted Drum. I'll leave it with you, Pretty.
Thank you. I just want to check you can all hear me correctly. You can hear me loud and clear, reasonable. And can you hear this?
Yes.
Yes? Okay. So I'm my skill with the drums, but we will see. All right. So, a long, long, long time ago, in a small, tiny, teeny village, nestled between emerald paddy fields and a restless, wild forest, there lived a drummer. His name was Arivan. Now, Arivan was not a warrior or, exceptionally skilled. He was not a scholar. He wasn't very wealthy. He was simply the man that people called when there was a temple procession, when there was a festival, when there was a wedding, and sometimes even a funeral. And he owned nothing but his small hut and his drum. Oh, how he loved that drum. And when he played, the children stopped arguing. The farmers paused mid-stride, and the wind seemed to sway to that rhythm. But music did not fill a stomach. The village was poor, and Arivan often went to bed hungry. He never complained. Each night he would sit outside his hut, looking at the stars tapping, tapping, soft, soft rhythms and whispering. Somewhere there must be a reason why I have been given this gift. And then one evening, it was a rainy, heavy, cloudy evening. The monsoon was at the height, and the rain poured like silver ropes from the sky. And suddenly a frail old man appeared at his door. His beard was long and white, his eyes sharp as the lightning that lit that stormy sky. May I have shelter for the night? Arivan didn't hesitate for a second. He had only a straw mat and half a handful of rice, and he gave both to the stranger, welcoming him inside his tiny hut. And that night, as the thunder growled across the sky, the old man listened to Arivan strum. Arivan played like he always did, softly, gently pouring his feelings into every beat. And when that final beat faded, the old man finally said something. "You play with your heart." And Arivan smiled. "It is all I know." And the old man studied him carefully with his sharp lightning eyes. And then beneath a worn shawl, he pulled out a drum. It was unlike any other drum that Arivan had ever seen. Its wood shimmered, cymbals were carved around the rim, and the leather looked almost alive. "This is not an ordinary drum. It is a drum of testing." "Testing what?" asked Arivan. "Faith. If ever your village faces grave danger, strike this drum with faith and courage, not doubt or fear. Strike it, and those who are meant to protect will come." And before Arivan could ask any other questions, the lightning outside flashed, the old man was gone, the rain had stopped, and the drum was in his hand. Many, many days passed, many monsoons passed, and Arivan kept the drum hidden. He dared not play it. Was the old man a witch? Was he a sage? Was he a spirit? Or had hunger just made him hallucinate? Until one day, when the soldiers came. They rode in at dusk, armed men from a distant kingdom, and their leader declared that the village now belonged to their lord. Crops would be taken, livestock would be seized, and any resistance punished. And the villagers trembled. They had no weapons, they had no army, they had no hope. And the headman turned to Arivan. "You are young, you are fast, you must flee to the next town and get some help." Arivan's heart pounded, and then, before he was just about to run, he remembered that drum. But what? What if it did nothing? What if it was just a cruel joke? The soldiers would attack at sunrise, and all night the village sat in silence, waiting for their doom. But Arivan, he decided what he was going to do. And he walked to the edge of that restless forest where no one could see him. And he placed that old drum before him. His hands shook, and he thought of his home, and he closed his eyes and struck the drum once. And the sound rolled through the night like distant thunder. Nothing happened, but he swallowed and struck again. And the second beat echoed as though the earth itself responded. This time the wind stirred, and Arivan's fear began to melt, replaced by something steadier and he struck the drum a third time. And this time, from the forest, shadows separating from the darkness, emerged some figures. Tall, radiant warriors clad in ancient armor, and their eyes shone like embers. Their spears gleamed. They were not ghosts, and they were not entirely human either. Guardians, maybe? Spirits of the land? No one knows. One of them stepped forward. You have called. You called with faith. You called for protection. And Arivan fell to his knees. I only wish to save my people. Please, please save us. And the warrior nodded. Then stand, for faith does not choose the strongest. It chooses the true. At dawn, when the invading soldiers marched towards that village, the guardians rose like a storm from the fields. And the clash was swift because it was done. No one knew what had happened. There was no blood that soaked the earth because the invaders had fled in terror, convinced that they had faced an army of demons or gods. And by midday, they were gone, with dust in the fields. The guardians turned to Arivan. Our duty ends when danger ends. Remember, the drum answers only a pure heart. Use it in any other way, and it will fall silent forever. And like mist under sunlight, they vanished. News of that miracle spread, and then the neighboring villages all came to Arivan. Use your drum to protect us. A wealthy merchant offered him gold. Protect me from the touts in the next village. A small king offered him a position at his court. I will give you whatever you want. I will give you half my kingdom. With such power, you can command armies. And Arivan thought, it would be so easy to become important, respected, feared. Ha! To just sleep with a full belly. He remembered the old man's eyes and the warrior's words, though. The drum was not a weapon. And so he refused those offers. I will play for festivals, I will play for weddings. If danger truly comes, the drum will decide. Everyone thought he was foolish, and they were quite disappointed that he would not listen to their advice. But Arivan felt something stronger than just their doubt. The years passed, many monsoons passed, and the village prospered. And then, one dry season, as it always does, famine threatened that region. A nearby kingdom demanded grain at sword point. And this time the villagers begged Arivan, summon the guardians, help us, do something. Arivan looked at the fields and looked at the invaders, and something stirred. They were hungry too. War would not solve that hunger. So he did not reach for that enchanted drum. He picked up his old drum and walked into the enemy camp alone. And he played, not a battle rhythm, but a rhythm of harvest, of rain, of shared earth. And all the hardened faces softened. They yearned for that same beats, for the same things that drum promised. And tears rolled down their faces. They began to speak to Arivan. and soon they were willing to talk to the village headman. And conversations replaced their threats. A meal was shared around the fire that now warmed the people sitting around it. Songs echoed into the night rather than the laments that would have serenaded the embers of their homes. They forged an agreement. They would share their grain, and they would build wells and irrigation together. That night, there were no warriors summoned, and again, there was no bloodshed. And as before, the warriors, the invaders, melted like mist into the sunlight, leaving just dust in their wake. Arivan sat before that enchanted drum and touched it gently. It did not glow. It did not hum. It just rested quietly. And he finally understood the drum was never meant to call anyone. And many years later, when Arivan had grown old, a young child asked him, "Tata," which means grandfather, "were the warriors real?" And Arivan smiled and said, "Very real. Where did they come from?" And he tapped the child's chest gently. "From here." The enchanted drum was never seen again after Arivan's passing. Some say it turned to dust, some say the mysterious old man reclaimed it, and some believed the drum was never magical at all. I don't know. Perhaps it simply awakened the magic that was already inside a humble drummer who chose faith over fear.
What a beautiful story to end our concert, Pretty. Wonderful. I'm so glad you got to tell the story tonight. Can we put all the storytellers up on the screen so we can give them all a big shout out? Thank you. Thank you so much. Jill and Joe, I think.
I can't see Jo yet, so I'm not certain. I can't spotlight her. Oh, there she is. Oh, now she's gone.
So can everyone give a big hand to our storytellers for this evening? And would like to thank all of our storytellers for your stories. They were absolutely beautiful and a lovely combination of tales that really wove together really nicely. So thank you for that. And thank you to you at home who joined us this evening. It's really great to have listeners. So storytellers always need listeners. So it's really great to have you here and supporting the AFTS with this annual project. I'm going to stop the recording now, but if we'd like to ask or make any comments after that, we can do that. Thanks everybody watching at home. Bye.